So supply is the total amount of product or service that producers are willing to provide, and demand is willing for consumers to purchase a product or service. An example of supply and demand can be the demand of PS5s a few years ago, and so producers were unable to keep up with the demand, and this resulted in less supply of PS5s and resellers increasing the price on different websites such as eBay. Elastic demand is when consumers are responsive to price changes on a product. This causes for consumers to look for substitutes. And elastic demand are products that don't have any change in demand and consumers don't seek for substitutes. An example of elastic demand can be coffee shops. These can have substitutes such as McDonald's or Dunkin'. Example of elastic demand can be medications. These will always stay constant even if price changes. Scarcity is demand for a good or service which is greater than its availability. This leads to two different sections such as wants and needs. An example of scarcity can be fuel shortage. During natural disasters, most gas stations run out of fuel as many people are hoarding it, and this causes an opportunity cost. So incentives are driving factors that encourage individuals, businesses, or governments to make particular economic choices or take specific actions. These incentives can be either financial or non-financial. Some examples can be taxes, payrolls, subsidies, etc. So when the government prints too much money, it usually leads to inflation. And the more money there is in circulation, the less valuable it becomes. Some examples can be when Germany had to print large amounts of money during World War One, and this led to inflation in the country and economic instability. Explicit costs are mandatory out-of-pocket expenses for businesses and the general economy. These costs affect profitability and are needed to produce goods and services. Implicit costs are known as opportunity costs. Some examples of explicit costs can be mandatory business expenses like salaries, rent, and materials. These costs are required in order to produce goods and services. An example of implicit costs can be a car you own, and if you choose to use it as transportation to work instead of renting it out. Restrictive practices are a way to limit competition in the market. These practices can usually range from limiting access to raising prices, and many companies use these tactics to limit competition from small businesses such as Google Play Store or Apple Play Store. And minimum wage is the lowest wage rate that employers are legally required to pay their employees for work performed within a specific jurisdiction and particular types of employment. These wages are usually unfair and are not able to sustain proper living conditions. Some examples can be the general minimum wage, which is $7.25, and that usually leads up to $1,160 per month, which is not sustainable. So, controlling and tracking inflation. The most common method of tracking inflation is CPI, Consumer Price Index, and you can monitor CPI by using the formula of CPI current minus CPI base divided by CPI base times 100%. Some examples of controlling inflation can be raising interest rates, and this will lead to people borrowing less money, increasing taxes, and raising exchange rates also help. Tax cuts help you save money on things that are regularly taxed by the government, especially in a recession. These can include reduction in income tax and corporate taxes, sales tax, etc. Some examples can be for businesses, paying less in taxes means they have more money to invest, grow, and hire more people. Some negative effects would be that consumers and taxpayers may believe that future products may become more costly, leading to them saving the surplus money they gain from that tax cut and then putting it towards different things. Natural legal monopolies. A natural monopoly exists when one company supplies more efficiently. It's like one big water company due to high infrastructure costs. An example of a natural monopoly can be a local water supplier. It's more efficient for one company to supply water to everyone in the area. And legal monopoly can be United States Postal Service, since the government only allows USPS to be the only provider of first-class mail services. Capital refers to the financial resources that businesses use to fund their operations and growth. And some examples can be machinery, tools, buildings, vehicles, things like that. Macroeconomics is the study of the general economy as a whole. It looks at GDP, unemployment, inflation, etc. Some examples of macroeconomics being used to analyze factors of the economy is setting national income levels, prices, unemployment, inflation, poverty, etc. Microeconomics studies how individual units like households and businesses make decisions about buying and selling goods and services. It focuses on supply and demand in particular markets. Some examples of microeconomics can be deciding how much to charge for a product, budgeting for groceries, choosing how many workers to hire, determining the amount of product produced. The fiscal policy involves government spending and tax policy to influence the economy. It helps control inflation and manage employment levels and stabilize economic growth. An example of fiscal policy being utilized can be during a recession, where the government may increase public spending or cut taxes to stimulate the economic activity. Exports and imports. An export is a product or service that is produced in one country and then sold to another. An import is a product or service that one country buys from another. An example of this can be Brazil exports their coffee beans to help support their economy and expand. Japan imports oil from other countries in order to support their advancement in technology and different industries. Trade surplus occurs when a country exports more goods and services than it imports. Trade surplus happens when exports. China is also known for their manufacturing industry. They export all goods all over the world, creating a trade surplus. This is an example. And Germany is also successive through automobiles, transportation, as they export more than they import. Trade deficit occurs when a country imports more goods and services. This usually leads to a negative impact on the economy. And some examples can be that the United States imports more electronics, vehicles, and machinery than it exports. Or the United Kingdom buys more food, clothing, and cars from other countries rather than exporting them. And India might import a lot of oil and gold more than it sells to other countries. Unemployment rate. Unemployment rate occurs when individuals who are willing to capable of working are unable to find employment opportunities. And the rate is determined. Unemployment rate is determined by dividing the number of unemployed individuals by the entire labor force. Some examples can be urban areas, rural areas, developing countries, and developed countries. So for urban areas, high population often leads to more competition for jobs, resulting in higher unemployment rates. Or developing countries, economic failure and lack of industrialization often result in high unemployment rates. Interest rates. Interest rates are the cost of borrowing money or the reward for saving it. They're set by central banks and financial institutions based on various factors like inflation, economic growth, and market demand. Some examples can be if you have a savings account, if you put $100 in a savings account with 2% annual interest rate, you'll earn up to $2 in interest over 1 year. Or for a credit card, if you have a credit card balance of $500 with a 20% annual interest rate, you'll owe $100 in interest if you don't pay it off within a year.